Previously on the Originals. Camille, forced by Aurora's compulsion, began her transformation into a vampire, but fought against losing her humanity. At the same time, Haley and Jackson were turned into Tristan's puppets, and in a heartbreaking turn, Jackson was killed when Tristan ripped out his heart. The Originals received a special gift. Elijah opened the box. Tristan sent Jackson's heart as a gift. Tristan arranged to meet the original siblings in the garage, threatening that if they didn't show up, he would send Haley's heart next. Haley was still imprisoned in a dark place, babbling apologies to her husband, saying she shouldn't have dragged him into these conflicts. He was the one who made her feel loved for the first time. But Haley's emotional confession is something Jackson will never hear again. Klaus trapped Camille inside a magical circle, desperate to address the crisis facing his family. For Camille's safety, he had no choice but to resort to this measure. They discussed their next steps. Elijah suggested that Klaus stay behind to take care of Camille, but Klaus insisted that he must fight for the mother of his child, or he would never be able to face Hope. Vincent noted that the enemy now held the upper hand. This remark jolted Freya into action. She decided to target Aurora. Using magic, she pinpointed Aurora's location. Vincent stood in the middle of the road, awaiting the speeding car. The driver showed no mercy and tried to run him down, but Vincent cast a spell, causing the car to flip over instantly. Two vampires crawled out, ready to fight, but Elijah swiftly took them down, one in each hand. Klaus dragged Aurora out of the car. Their mission was accomplished. Freya lifted Camille's boundary spell, telling her she didn't want her to hate Klaus for it. Camille thanked Freya for her freedom and intended to leave on her own, but Freya mentioned that she could actually use Camille's help. Tristan soon discovered his sister was missing and called Elijah. They agreed to exchange hostages in the garage. Elijah offered to trade Haley and the Saratura for Aurora's life. Tristan hung up the phone, his worry for his sister causing him to lose his composure. Marcel suggested that Tristan devise a battle plan, but Tristan said that as long as the hostage exchange was successful, he would immediately have the vampire organization strike, using the daggers to seal the original brothers into their graves. The two groups met in the garage as planned, the tension in the air palpable. Tristan kept sending in reinforcements, unaware that the original brothers had never feared overwhelming numbers. Vincent and Freya secretly began casting a spell. The hostage exchange ceremony officially commenced. Tristan signaled his men to bring out Haley, stating that she had been injected with a large amount of wolfsbane, but it wasn't fatal. Klaus also opened the container's door, revealing a girl locked inside with a hood over her head. Without suspicion, Tristan stepped into the container and removed the hood from the girl's head, confirming that it was indeed Aurora. Tristan's men handed Haley over. Tristan then proceeded to unbind Aurora. Elijah took the weakened Haley into his arms. Tristan, full of concern, embraced his sister, but Aurora, while he was off guard, secretly reached into his pocket and pulled out the Saratura. Tristan was puzzled. Aurora slaps the Saratura onto the container. The weapon's power activated, transforming the container into a sealed space, from which no living or dead being could escape. Tristan couldn't comprehend what had gotten into his sister, but Aurora casually walked out of the sealed container, and in the blink of an eye, she transformed into Camille. Being in the transition phase of becoming a vampire, Camille was neither fully alive nor dead, allowing her to freely enter and exit the container. Realizing he had been tricked, Tristan flew into a rage and ordered the vampire organization to slaughter everyone, but he had clearly overestimated his men's loyalty. Elijah loudly reminded them that fighting the Originals would only lead to heavy casualties. They didn't need to risk their lives for a fool like Tristan, who was never getting out anyway.
I delivered you into this existence. I can just as easily pluck you out of it. The choice is yours to make.
Marcel also urged Aya not to let so many people die in vain. The circle of vampires began to break apart. Aya walked over to Tristan.
May the ghosts of our fallen keep you company.
Tristan had been abandoned by his own men. Elijah announced the Originals' family verdict on Tristan. Tristan would be thrown into the depths of the ocean, where he would continually suffocate and revive, condemned to an eternity of darkness, silence, and pain, never knowing peace, never finding rest. Klaus assured Tristan that Aurora's fate wouldn't be any better than his. Haley, filled with hatred, stepped forward as well. She made sure Tristan remembered her face before closing the container door. Camille arrived at the cemetery to lay flowers for her family. Vincent soon appeared in front of Camille. Camille said that helping the Originals made her realize that the blood of justice still flowed through her veins, rather than lying unaware in a dark grave. She still wanted to do her part to protect the city her uncle once defended, whether as a human or as a vampire. Vincent understood Camille's intent and offered her his wrist. Starving for an entire day, Camille began to feed ravenously, her eyes gradually turning blood red. After being ousted by the witch coven, Davina was shunned by the witch community. Even the street vendors ignored her, with only her friend Josh still willing to stay by her side. The vampire organization seized this opportunity, and Aya took Davina to tour the Strix witch group. They were all witches expelled from the witch world, uniquely gifted yet isolated and alone. Aya extended an olive branch to Davina, offering her a resurrection spell as a gift for joining, but Davina couldn't tell if the spell was real, so she decided to drink poison and enter the spirit world to find Cole and have him check if the spell was legitimate. Josh disagreed with Davina taking such a life-threatening risk, but with her mind made up, Davina secretly drank the poison. Davina cut Josh's palm, pressing her own wounded palm tightly against his. Davina instructed Josh not to let go under any circumstances, as it was her last link to the living world. Davina lay down and soon fell into a deep sleep. She awoke in a desolate and eerie world, turning to see her body still lying where she left it. Without hesitation, Davina opened the door and entered the realm of the dead, where darkness and fear lingered in the air and the streets were empty. Suddenly, a pair of hands pulled her into an alley. It was her long-missed boyfriend, Cole. Though she didn't recognize his original appearance, Cole held his girlfriend tightly in his arms. Her boyfriend's new appearance made Davina feel a bit reserved, but the streetlights overhead suddenly flickered, an ominous sign. Cole hesitated no longer and hurriedly pulled Davina away from the area. They arrived at a bar. Cole explained that they were hiding from the witch ancestors' pursuit, noting that luckily, those old relics didn't care for places like bars. The lovers, separated by life and death, finally broke free from all restraints and kissed passionately. Cole knew his girlfriend was still adjusting to his true face, so he suggested she remember their last dance. In the gloomy, dark bar, the couple embraced and danced. Davina finally smiles. Davina looked at Cole's scarred face with concern, telling him she had found a way to bring him back. She handed Cole the resurrection spell that Aya had given her. Cole stared at the resurrection spell for a long time, seemingly making a difficult decision. He told Davina that the resurrection spell was fake, but Davina could tell he was lying. The spell was too dangerous, and Cole couldn't bear the thought of his girlfriend risking herself for him. The lights in the bar soon begin to flicker again, and the ancestors of the witches arrive. Cole quickly pulled Davina behind the bar to hide. A group of eerie figures roamed through the bar. They held their breath, not daring to make a sound, and fortunately, the witch ancestors soon left. Cole didn't hesitate any longer and immediately led Davina toward the church where she had crossed over, but the witch Kara, whom Davina had killed, quickly found them. Filled with anger, Kara knocked Cole away with a single move and then turned around and charged Davina. Davina collapsed to the ground, her head splitting with pain, and her sleeping body in the real world began to show signs of distress. Josh watched over Davina with concern, unaware that a witch had appeared behind him. Ariane swiftly slit Josh's throat, causing him to fall unconscious. As Davina seemed destined to remain in the spirit world forever, Ariane, who had severed her link with Josh, now came to her rescue, offering to help Davina cross back. They finally reached the church, but the witch ancestors were closing in. Cole locked the door, saying he would stay behind to buy Davina some time. Davina didn't want to leave him in danger, but Ariane reminded her that Cole could never leave with them anyway. They finally made it back to the church's attic. Davina regretfully realized that her connection with Josh had been broken. Ariane urged Davina to calm down and think about all the things she still cared about in the mortal world.
Oh, I swear I'll come back for you.
In the real world, Davina finally woke up. She didn't understand why Ariane had helped her, but Ariane explained that it was all on Aya's orders. With her mission complete, Ariane prepared to leave, but Davina stopped her. Davina asked Ariane if giving up her freedom for a power that could help them achieve their desires was really worth it. Without hesitation, Ariane affirmed that it was. Davina was shaken. Even vampires who've lived for 1,000 years enjoy playing truth or dare, but their punishments are a bit more brutal. Several witches gathered around a massive heart, activating a ritual. The heart is beating strangely. In front of each participant is a card that can read hearts. If the card displayed a loyal knight on the front, it signified the holder's loyalty. One nervous man didn't dare to flip his card. He tried to escape, but Aya blocked his way, swiftly and cleanly beheading him the next second. Aya then flipped over his card, revealing a mummy hanging upside down on a cross. Marcel, the newest member, was extremely anxious inside but pretended to be calm as he turned over his card. It was a loyal knight. He let out an almost imperceptible sigh of relief. The prophecy of the Originals family's downfall made them all uneasy. As the new leader of the organization, Aya promised she would do everything in her power to protect them. Meanwhile, the brothers at the center of the prophecy were bickering. Elijah mocked his brother for only caring about beautiful women while ignoring the family's real predicament. Klaus retorted that Elijah was always the family's protector, but no one was looking out for the newly turned vampire, Camille. Elijah replied that Klaus shouldn't have been so soft-hearted and given her the daylight ring. Haley interrupts the brothers' conversation by hugging Hope. She couldn't be alone in her love nest with Vincent.
Haley, this family comes with many, many hardships, but there is at least one benefit.
Klaus then went to find Camille. Elijah received a call from Aya. Aya stated that she didn't have as many schemes as Tristan. She just wanted Elijah not to drag everyone down with him. She claimed to have found a clue about the prophecy. Aya took Elijah to meet Ariane. Ariane possessed incredible talent. She would use water as a conductor to delve into Elijah's mind, tracing his past 1,000 years to uncover the truth of the prophecy. Elijah was skeptical but decided to take the risk. He lay in the water, allowing Ariane to probe his thoughts. 1,000 years of memories flashed by quickly, and Ariane carefully sensed everything about Elijah. The ritual ended quickly, and Elijah suddenly stood up. Ariane, horrified, revealed the prophecy she had seen.
A pale horse. A flame that will burn you all.
They were one step closer to the truth. The newly turned vampire Camille was like a completely different person. She had succumbed to the darkness within, freely choosing her victims as she pleased. Klaus tried to teach Camille how to control her bloodlust, but Camille found Klaus too annoying and snapped his neck without hesitation. Camille pretended to casually run into Detective Kinney, manipulating him into using his position as a police officer to steal her stash of dark magic items from Lucien's house. Camille was smug and guilt-free. Luckily, Klaus arrived in time to confiscate Camille's items and forcibly took her back home. Camille angrily claimed that those things were her family's inheritance, passed down from her uncle, but Klaus said they were all Cole's inventions and rightfully belonged to the Michelson family. Camille furiously declared that Klaus would pay for this. She said that becoming a vampire had taken away her humanity, and because of that, Klaus no longer loved her. He was only interested in controlling her. Haley arrived just in time to interrupt their argument, saying she would talk to Camille. Elijah also stopped Klaus, telling him that Camille was now just a pawn for Aurora, and keeping their distance would do no harm. He needed his brother to join him in discussing the witch's prophecy. Haley patiently talked about the pain of going through the transformation. Camille mercilessly tore open Haley's wounds, saying that Jackson's death was a good thing. It finally allowed her and Elijah to be together without any obstacles. Haley barely contained her anger, threatening Camille not to speak ill of her husband again. Camille then feigned a look of sudden remorse, claiming she didn't understand why she had become so cruel. Haley could only forgive her for her rudeness. Camille said she needed to go home and be alone to clear her mind. Klaus finally realized what the white horse in the prophecy represented. It wasn't a constellation or a scripture, but a small wooden horse he had carved for Rebecca when they were children. It was made from firewood that Elijah had gathered. It's the only piece of white oak stake left in the world. The weapon they had been searching for was right under their noses, chewed on by his daughter as a teething toy. But now the carved wooden horse had completely vanished. Haley swore that she was playing with that little horse while holding her daughter just this afternoon. Klaus suddenly recalled a story he had once told, back when Camille was still human and served as his therapist. Camille had used her vampire-enhanced hearing to overhear the prophecy, and she deciphered its meaning before they did. She had solved the riddle of the prophecy before they did. Now, Camille calmly walked through the crowd, holding the small wooden horse toy in her hand. She couldn't resist smugly calling Klaus to taunt him, saying she didn't want to hurt him. She just wanted to gain a bit of leverage. Klaus sighed and hung up the phone. Elijah, meanwhile, found the witch Ariane, who had made the prophecy for him. Ariane had already anticipated Elijah's true intention. He had to kill every person who knew. Elijah gently brushed Ariane's hair aside, and Ariane accepted her fate with calm resignation. The loss of the white oak stake put the Originals family on high alert. Klaus was tasked with calming down the mad Camille. Elijah was tasked with distracting Aya. Haley asked him why he didn't just kill Aya. Elijah explained that he and Aya once had a relationship. They had founded the vampire organization together, but when Michael found them, Elijah had to flee with his siblings in the middle of the night. The vampires in the organization were nearly wiped out by Michael, and it was Tristan who saved them, seizing power and becoming the leader. Aya never forgave Elijah. Elijah said he never forgave himself for abandoning them either, but that wouldn't stop him from causing Aya some trouble now. Aya was in the middle of giving a speech to her followers. Elijah's killing of Ariane made her realize that a mysterious weapon had surfaced. Although she didn't yet know what it was, everyone needed to be on high alert. Elijah walked in, interrupting Aya's speech, stating that Aya's rise to leadership was against protocol. As a founder, he had the right to decide who should lead. Elijah pulled out an ancient charter, declaring that in the absence of a qualified leader, the founder himself would take over the organization. Aya says then she'll activate the King's Game rights. Marcel asked what the King's Game was. Elijah simply told him that children shouldn't interrupt when adults are talking. Aya said that according to their agreement, she had the right to challenge Elijah. From now until midnight, whoever possessed the charter would become the next leader. Elijah reluctantly accepted the challenge. The group moved to the boxing ring. Marcel grumbled that this was like children fighting over candy, childish and ridiculous. Elijah also believed that Aya had no chance of winning, but Aya fiercely squared off. Ready to fight, Elijah casually placed the charter on a chair. They began to fight. Aya still hadn't forgiven Elijah for abandoning her. Elijah, however, said that after ensuring his siblings were safe, he had gone back to search for Aya. Aya replied that he always put his family first, which was why he, like them, was cursed by the prophecy. Elijah grabbed Aya by the throat, declaring the game was over, but suddenly, a figure rushed in and knocked him down. Marcel stands tall with the charter and smugly says that according to the rules of the game he is now one of the contestants.
Catch me if you can. If not, come midnight.
Both Elijah and Aya sent people to track down Marcel's whereabouts. Elijah remarked that Marcel could just hide in any random house, and none of the vampires would be able to get to him. Aya asked Elijah why he didn't kill her in the boxing ring. It seemed she still had lingering feelings for him, but Elijah, unwilling to be like Klaus and use seduction as a tactic, said that next time, he would be more decisive. Aya is completely disillusioned by his merciless answer. With 3 minutes left until midnight, Elijah finally discovered where Marcel was hiding, but Marcel refused to come out from the human's house. Elijah threatened to blow up the house if Marcel didn't come out. Forcing Marcel to surrender, the homeowner invited Elijah inside. Aya stood across the street, watching intently. Midnight passed, and Elijah walked out of the house empty-handed. Aya reminded Elijah that the game was over, but Elijah refused to accept the result, insisting that Marcel had won through trickery. Marcel retorted that there was no rule against hiding, and his charm made every household eager to invite him in. Furious, Elijah grabbed Marcel's heart. Marcel said that if Elijah broke the charter first, no one would follow his rules. Aya also urged Elijah not to be a sore loser. Angrily, Elijah let Marcel go. Seizing the moment, Marcel gave a speech, saying that while he might not be the strongest, it was wise to have him in charge because he knew this city better than anyone.
This is my city because I took it! That is what a leader does!
Elijah wanted to argue further, but Aya was the first to pledge loyalty to the new leader, forcing Elijah to leave in a rage. The scene shifted, and the two men, who had been at each other's throats moments before, were now happily drinking to celebrate, complimenting each other's acting skills. Who wouldn't admire such a brilliant plan? Marcel assured Elijah that he would keep the vampires in check, allowing the original brothers to focus on the real enemy.